It's a real story. I found a hidden room in my new house. What I discovered will haunt me forever. The moment I set foot inside the old house, memories of my childhood flooded back to me. It was a grand structure, a Victorian beauty that stood tall with its intricate woodwork and a sprawling garden overtaken by weeds. The house had belonged to my great-aunt Clara, a woman who had been larger than life, a figure who spun stories of long-forgotten family dinners and secrets whispered between the shadows. When she passed away, leaving the house to me, I was filled with an odd mixture of excitement and apprehension. As I unloaded the moving truck on that gloomy, drizzling day, I took a moment to appreciate the architectural details, the gabled roof, the bay windows, and the countless nooks and crannies that seemed to promise untold secrets. Clara had always spoken of the house with a degree of reverence, but there was something else, the hint of fear woven into her tales. She would often hint at strange happenings and odd occurrences, but her stories were never specific enough to reveal the truth. All I knew was that she had never completely let go of the house, even after her husband passed. She remained fiercely protective of it, and something deep inside me was stirring, eager to know why. The first few days were spent unpacking boxes and attempting to bring life back to a house that felt lost in time, a place where laughter had once echoed off the walls. I began to explore each room, opening windows to let in the damp, cool air, brushing away cobwebs that seemed to flutter like curtains in a ghostly ballet. Memories of childhood visits to Clara's home danced through my mind as I recalled the stories she shared about her life, the laughter of family members resonating in her tales. But soon, as I found my footing in this enchanting yet unsettling abode, I began noticing subtle peculiarities that made my skin prickle. I would hear soft whispers, a faint rustling sound that seemed to flit on the edges of my hearing. At first, I thought my mind was just playing tricks on me, worn thin by the stress of the move. Clara's warnings about the house strummed at the back of my mind, but I brushed them off as fanciful nonsense from a doting relative. One night, as I settled down in my new living room, the faint sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway outside. My heart raced. It's just the house settling, I whispered to myself, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was not alone. I switched on the lamp beside me, bathing the room in warm light, pushing the shadows into the corners. Despite a creeping sense of dread, I was determined not to let fear dictate my experience. I kept reminding myself that Clara had adored this house. It was a sanctuary for her during turbulent years of heartache and joy alike. I wanted nothing more than to do justice to her memory. Ignoring the unease that lurked in the corners of the house was my newfound mission. Days turned into weeks as I settled into my routine. One rainy afternoon, while I rummaged through the attic, I stumbled upon a dusty rug that seemed completely out of place. It was a rich crimson color, soft beneath my fingers, yet neglected. I pulled it up, revealing a trapdoor partially hidden beneath it. My pulse quickened. A mixture of curiosity and apprehension filled me. What could be down there? I hesitated. Clara had always had an air of secrecy about her. She spoke of the attic only in hushed tones, and she never broached the subject of the basement or hidden spaces. Was this door something I was meant to uncover, or was it a warning? The world outside was clamoring with raindrops, and the sound amplified my tension, filling the silence like an impending storm. Gripping the doorknob firmly, I pulled it open, revealing a narrow staircase spiraling downward into darkness. With my heart pounding, I grabbed a flashlight from a nearby box and slowly descended the creaking steps. The air grew heavy with the scent of damp earth and old wood, as if these walls held centuries of whispered secrets. At the bottom of the stairs, I found a small, dimly lit room, the walls lined with dusty jars filled with grim-looking substances. They appeared to pulsate faintly in my flashlight's beam, and I recoiled instinctively. In the center of the room was an old wooden table strewn with objects that felt foreign yet deeply unsettling, each one exuding an eerie energy. I cautiously stepped forward, my curiosity leading me to examine the items in greater detail. Old photographs lined the walls, their subjects blurred and faded. Shivers coursed through me as I studied the images, some featuring figures draped in dark cloaks, others depicting grim rituals. An old leather-bound journal was partially open on the table, covered in swirling handwriting that revealed snippets of torment. The horror seeped from the pages, recounting tales of dark presences that whispered through the hallways, unseen but undeniably felt. One entry sent chills rippling through my body. They come at night, cloaked in shadows. I am losing myself. I fear what they will take. Each line felt like a plea for help, an echo of despair. That tugged at my heartstrings. My hands trembled as I closed the journal, a wave of nausea washing over me. I could feel the room pulse with an unsettling energy, and I wanted nothing more than to flee. Despite my better judgment, I couldn't pull myself away. No matter how much I craved light and air, something deeper compelled me to stay. I was terrified, but I was also intrigued, a morbid curiosity that clawed at my gut. Who had lived here before? What horrors had they faced? Clara had spent years in this house. Had she encountered this hidden room? Did she know of its existence and the darkness that lingered? That night, I fell into a restless sleep, plagued by nightmares. I dreamed of the woman in the photographs, her anguished face a mixture of sorrow and fear. She reached for me, her hands clawing through a void of shadow, whispering for help. When I awoke, my heart raced as I remembered how vividly she had appeared before me. I could vividly hear her voice, a haunting echo that reverberated within my mind. The next morning, I found myself yearning to uncover the truth. Determined to learn more, I began searching through old boxes in the library that my great-aunt had kept in her home. Dust and time had settled upon them, but I worked through them, pulling out faded family albums and documents. Surprisingly, I stumbled upon a sepia-toned photograph of a woman cradling a doll in front of the house, her features heartbreakingly familiar. Taking a closer look, my heart dropped. Her blue eyes held a strange familiarity, and her smile danced between serene and sinister. I flipped the photograph over, finding a handwritten note that chilled my bones. Beware the shadows that dwell within. They claim those who don't heed their whispers. Doubt began to creep in, feeding my anxiety. Had this woman faced the very same horrors I now sensed lurking in the corners of my new home? My head spinning with concerns about what lay ahead. The house had a weight to it, something invisible pressing down on my chest, growing heavier as the days went on. I confided in a couple of friends, hoping to share my unease, but they simply shrugged it off as stress from moving. To them, it was just an old house filled with memories, not a trapped entity filled with despair. But no matter how much I tried to convince myself, something inside me shifted that night. The shadows loomed larger, and the sensation of being watched intensified as I tried to maintain normalcy. I kept returning to the hidden room, piecing together entries in the journals, desperate for answers. Each visit felt like a descent into darker waters, my sanity tethering dangerously close to the edge. One particularly harrowing night, I gathered enough courage to confront whatever lay in that hidden room. With renewed determination, I descended the stairs, the wood groaning beneath my weight. I flicked on my flashlight, enveloping the room in its weak beam. As I stepped in, the atmosphere shifted. The familiar chill wrapped around me like a thick blanket. The shadows extended as I placed my camera on the table, planning to document the phenomena that had haunted me so. "Show yourself," I called into the room, my voice trembling, choked with uncertainty. For a moment, nothing happened. A deep hush blanketed me like a shroud. Then suddenly a cacophony erupted as objects rattled violently on the shelves. The air thickened, a palpable energy swelling in the room. Cold gusts surged around me, extinguishing my flashlight as darkness enveloped me. My heart beat frantically against my ribcage. I felt absolutely alone yet utterly trapped. As I fumbled to turn the flashlight back on, I felt a presence emerging from the shadows. The beam flickered back to life, illuminating what appeared to be a woman, her outline distorted, yet unmistakable. The vision was fleeting, yet in her eyes, a mirror of sorrow, I recognized. Pain I could only dream of understanding. "Help me," she whispered, her breath a frigid specter against my skin. I stumbled back, pure terror surging through me. Was this what Clara had faced all those years? Had she known the burden of the house? I recoiled, feeling the energy shift dramatically. It was a choice I had to make. Was I willing to confront this dark history, or would I allow it to continue haunting me? After a long, grueling silence, I summoned the courage to speak. "What do you want from me?" My voice trembled, but deep down, I felt the stirring of compassion pressing firmly against my terror. The figure began to flicker, her shape unstable in the dim light. Her whispers turned into a low hum, growing louder, more desperate. "Release me." In that moment, a flood of realization crashed over me. This was no mere spirit left unresolved. This was a soul tied to the shadows of the house. The journals had spoken of old rituals for communication and release. But what if it wasn't just about understanding the past? What if it required an acknowledgement of my fears? Drawing from the journal's text, I hesitated only for a moment before I began reciting the passages about acknowledging grief and loss. My voice rose above the escalating whispers, and the presence around me thickened with anticipation. "I see your pain," I declared, my heart racing as I pressed on. "You are not alone. I acknowledge your sorrow." Every word sent ripples through the air, shaking the shadows, and the atmosphere trembled. With increasing intensity, an enormous gust of wind surged through the room, knocking over jars and sending dust swirling in the light beam of my flashlight. The spirit's form pulsed and shifted. For the first time, I saw her face illuminated clearly. The anguish had softened into a haunting beauty, a reflection of who she once was, a woman, trapped in the house's history, and something it refused to let go. I clung tightly to my conviction, desperate to aid her. As I spoke the final words of the ritual, the shadows convulsed violently, flaring ominously. The oppressive force in the room peaked, surrounding me in a tornado of energy. I shielded my eyes and felt as if I were being pulled apart, like threads unraveling from reality. And then silence. Slowly, the air began to cool, the chaotic energy dispersing, giving way to a warm glow. The walls seemed to breathe, allowing light to seep through the cracks, illuminating the small chamber. I stood in awe, watching as the figure began to dissolve into gentle wisps of light, her expression transforming from anguish to peace. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice fading into the stillness beyond the room. The weight of the house lifted, a palpable sense of relief washing over me. I stood there, astonished, trembling yet exhilarated. It was a strange mingling of emotions, fear now mingled with understanding. This house had been a prison, and I had unwittingly become part of its story. Emerging from the depths of the hidden room, I felt a ripple of warmth in the atmosphere. The whispers that had once haunted my nights transformed into a serene hum that settled lovingly around me. The house, once fraught with sorrow, seemed to have exhaled, releasing its burdens. In the days that followed, the house transformed. No longer could I hear echoes of despair or feel oppressive energies lingering among the dust. I embraced the light that poured through the windows, the warmth of the sun breaking down the barriers of darkness that had gripped the house for so long. I began painting the walls in bright colors, replacing old furniture with pieces that reflected my spirit. Yet even as the house thrived, the memory of the woman lingered in the corners of my mind. I often found myself drawn back to the attic, the hidden door replaced by a normal rug once more. I left the journals untouched, a silent tribute to her journey, leaving them as a reminder of what had transpired within those walls. Time marched on as I slowly settled into the rhythm of everyday life. Friends visited, laughter reverberated throughout the halls, and the shadows receded. Yet, every now and then in the stillness of night, I would feel a tingling sensation, a brush of energy teasing at the edges of my consciousness. In those moments, I would often smile, knowing that the woman's spirit was now at peace, free from the shackles of sorrow that had bound her. Eventually, I found myself more deeply connected to Clara's history. I sought out the community, learning about my ancestors and the legacy they had crafted within that house. As I pieced together their stories, I realized that the essence of the home, its memories, its pain, was crucial to understanding the woman I was becoming. Though the whispers had faded, the memory of what I had discovered remained. I understood, now, that the battle between light and darkness was perpetual, entwined as tightly as the roots of the trees lining the garden outside. These echoes would forever ripple through the walls, resonating through the afternoons, filled with laughter, and quiet evenings steeped in serenity. This house, my home, was alive again, an eternal reminder that healing could emerge from even the darkest places, and sometimes it takes facing fear to find freedom.